spoken to nearly 30 whistleblowers,
and they
most
came
of which
to
are
the
current employees in your administration who have intimate knowledge of what's been going on, who have all stated that they've faced retaliation for calling out fraud.
But
Are you going to take responsibility for this?
I supervise 40,000 employees. State agencies
You
have their own.
supervise a lot of employees, and as you have said, the buck stops with you. And your administration has treated whistleblowers like absolute dirt, and that's a big reason why we've seen so much of our hard-earned tax dollars defrauded. Governor Walz, are you familiar with the early intensive developmental and behavioral intervention benefit?
I am, Congressman.
Got it. It provides services for autism patients. Is that right?
That is correct.
Got it. And when did you become governor?
In January of 2019.
In 2019. Okay. So using 2018 as a baseline, do you know what that program paid in Medicaid claims?
I do not, Congressman.
It's about $671,000. Do you know what that program paid in Medicaid claims in 2024?
I don't have the number in front of me.
$342 million. That's about a 500x increase over 6 years. Was there 500 times the number of autism patients in that time period?
I couldn't speak specifically to it, but I will say, Congressman, that
doesn't sound reasonable, right? You don't think there was a 500x increase in the number of autism patients in 6 years, right?
Correct, and that's why we ordered on-site visits starting back in 2024.
So we agree that doesn't sound reasonable. Would you also agree that a single taxpayer dollar wasted on fraud is a dollar too much to tolerate?
Yes.
Yep, and would you agree that as governor, ultimately you're responsible if tax dollars are defrauded?
Yes, I would agree.
Yep. Would you also agree that calling somebody racist is a serious accusation?
If they are racist, I think it's probably
I'm asking
accurate.
you, is that a serious accusation to make about somebody?
I think it's just an observation of reality.
All right, well, let's go there. Is it racist for a government official to identify fraud?
No.
No. Is it Islamophobic?
To identify fraud?
To identify fraud?
No, I don't believe it would be.
How come multiple whistleblowers have said that your administration told them not to say anything about widespread fraud across multiple agencies because doing so would be considered racist or Islamophobic?
I can't speak to it because it's not anything I would say.
Well, that's what your administration has said and has told whistleblowers, and as you just testified, the buck stops with you. That's what you stated in your statement whenever you announced you weren't running again. Are you familiar with Faye Bernstein?
Yes, I'm familiar with the name.
She's a Democrat, isn't she?
I wouldn't know that.
She stated publicly that she's a Democrat. She's only voted Democrat in her life. She's also stated publicly that she was retaliated against and called racist, and that her work responsibilities were diminished whenever she was highlighting fraud within your administration. Are you familiar with that?
I couldn't speak to specific allegations.
Why do you think she would say that?
I can't speak for what she would think.
You have no idea?
I do not.
You would agree that the tone in your administration comes from you ultimately, right?
The tone is that.
The tone of how you might deal with whistleblowers.
Right, and we protect them.
Wait, it doesn't sound like you're protecting them. We heard from Representative Kristen Robbins, quote, "We have dozens of credible whistleblower reports saying the exact same thing, that people were told not to say anything because they'd be called racist or Islamophobic or it would hurt the state." Do you think it's racist or Islamophobic to highlight and try to stop fraud?
It is not, and I certainly wouldn't
It's
know.
not, but that was the message your administration was sending to multiple whistleblowers.
I can't speak to that.
You can't speak to that. You don't want to speak to that, I think.
I have over 40,000 employees,
retaliated against?
Pardon me?
Do you think whistleblowers should be retaliated against?
Absolutely not. They have strong protections in Minnesota and lots of paths. And the paths go for the OLA.
That's not what we're hearing from whistleblowers. Faye Bernstein, who, again, has stated that she is a Democrat, she's only ever voted Democrat, says that she was subjected to, quote, a smear campaign for trying to make leadership aware of illegal contracting practices. Why do you think that happened?
I can't speak to that, Congressman, because we don't do it.
You just don't. You don't know anything.
I do know that we don't. We have strong whistleblower protections, and I can't speak.
That's not what the whistleblowers are saying. According to another report, quote, "There's just a continuous effort to stifle you, to shut you up, and it's impossible to overcome." Your administration's response to whistleblowers has also been described as, quote, "nearly unbearable retaliation." We've heard claims that, quote, they've been denied vacations, promotions, and that it's hurt people's careers to speak out against fraud. Do you think that that had something to do with the prevalence of fraud in your administration?
I can't speak to it, but it
Are you
doesn't
going to take
happen.
responsibility for this?
I supervise 40,000 employees. State agencies
You
have their own
supervise
income.
a lot of employees, and as you have said, the buck stops with you. And your administration has treated whistleblowers like absolute dirt, and that's a big reason why we've seen so much of our hard-earned tax dollars defrauded.
Look, Congressman, I told you we have strong protections. We have an Office of
This committee has
Legislative
spoken
Auditor.
to nearly 30 whistleblowers,
And they
most
came
of which
to
are
the-
current employees in your administration who have intimate knowledge of what's been going on, who have all stated that they've faced retaliation for calling out fraud.
I can't speak to them what they felt. in
And
that.
time is up. I yield back.
First of all, guys,
In today's explosive congressional hearing, we watch Representative Brandon Gill confront Minnesota Governor Tim Walz over explosive allegations of Medicaid fraud, whistleblower retaliation, and claims that state employees were discouraged from exposing corruption out of fear of being labeled racist or Islamophobic. As Gill presents eye-opening figures and testimony from whistleblowers, Walz repeatedly denies wrongdoing, but his answers leave many questions unanswered. The hearing begins with Gill challenging Governor Walz on what he describes as a culture inside the Minnesota government that discouraged employees from reporting fraud. Gill asks a direct question: is it racist or Islamophobic to expose fraud? Walz answers no, but Gill quickly argues that's exactly the message whistleblowers say they received while trying to report widespread abuse of taxpayer dollars. Walz repeatedly says he cannot speak to those allegations, insisting Minnesota has strong whistleblower protections, but Gill isn't convinced. The discussion then shifts to Medicaid spending. Gill points to one autism services program that paid roughly $671,000 in claims in 2018, but by 2024 had ballooned to more than $342 million, an increase of nearly 500 times in just 6 years. Gill asks whether autism cases increased anywhere close to that level. Walz admits that number doesn't sound reasonable but says the state has already begun increasing oversight and conducting investigations. Gill responds that every dollar lost to fraud is a dollar stolen from taxpayers and reminds the governor that, as chief executive, the responsibility ultimately rests with him. That if you're enjoying this breakdown of today's hearing, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the biggest moments from Congress.
Governor Walz, when did your administration first become aware that fraud risks were escalating in Minnesota's child care assistance program? You were kind of an outlier in the whole country.
Well, thank you, Congressman. This dates back to about 2012 that the action has been being taken. And as I stated earlier, on our first days in office, we started taking action. I would ask if I could on this, anything that Governor Walker did, I would appreciate if you would show us what those actions were. We're more than happy to implement them, and that's what we've started over the last 7 years.
Reports indicate that some providers continued receiving payments even after the fraud concerns were raised. Was that a decision made by your administration, and who specifically you feel did not?
I can't speak specifically to which those were. Decisions are made at the department level, but I can't speak to what those allegations were.
We're told it was still 11% under your administration. When fraud indicators appear in a program funded by federal taxpayers, do you believe the responsible action is to pause payments until those concerns are investigated?
I don't think it's that simple. As I said, these programs provide a really important service, and child care is a critical one. The issue is trying to make sure the legitimate payments are made and that you're stopping fraud. So I don't think in all cases that pausing those payments is the right action.
Okay, just in general, I'll say when the fraud percentage reaches 11% in Minnesota and we got it down under 1% in Wisconsin, I think it's a cause for concern. I'll give you another question because a little bit of this hearing wandered a little bit to what happened in your streets out there. When any agency comes to Wisconsin, any federal agency, I've talked to several of our sheriffs, could be ICE, could be Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, could be FBI, could be Secret Service. Our sheriffs always try to coordinate with the federal agencies, ask them what they need. You need us to set up a perimeter. Can we help you by transporting people to the local jail? Do you just want some squad cars parked around to presumably keep troublemakers at bay? That was not done in Minnesota like it's routinely done in certainly all the.
I don't think that's a correct characterization. I think Tom Holman indicated that those things do happen and have been happening.
During the time in which you had the serious riots or whatever you want to call them in Minnesota, I believe that you did not reach out for your state law enforcement to help out federal law enforcement, in part because you're a sanctuary state. And
That is incorrect. Tom Holman indicated we are not. I don't know what to tell you, Congressman. We did. We want to cooperate. That's not what you saw on the streets.
right. We did not see cooperation.
You saw ICE agents shooting people in the head. You saw little children being drug out. You saw ICE agents indiscriminately throwing smoke grenades. And I think what the world saw was peaceful resistance and a defense of their neighbors. So this is not about immigration reform. This was about an untrained force that came in, not with the intention of immigration.
I would say that you did not have the interaction between local law enforcement and federal agencies that is routinely seen around the country.
Gill then returns to the whistleblower issue. He references former state employee Faye Bernstein, who publicly identified herself as a lifelong Democrat and claims she faced retaliation after raising concerns about fraud within the state government. According to Gill, Bernstein's responsibilities were reduced after trying to expose questionable contracting practices. Walz refuses to comment on individual allegations, saying he cannot speak to claims he believes are inaccurate. Gill pushes even harder, arguing that leadership sets the tone for an entire administration. If multiple whistleblowers are telling the same story, he says, the governor can't simply distance himself from the problem. The hearing concludes with broader questions about fraud prevention and cooperation with federal authorities. Another lawmaker asks why suspected fraudulent child care payments weren't paused while investigations were underway. Walz argues that stopping payments altogether could also harm families legitimately relying on those programs and says each case requires careful judgment. The hearing then turns briefly to immigration enforcement, with lawmakers debating whether Minnesota cooperated fully with federal agencies during recent operations. Walz strongly rejects claims that his administration refused to work with federal officials. The hearing ended without any major admissions, but it highlighted serious disagreements over accountability, fraud oversight, and the treatment of whistleblowers inside Minnesota's government. Supporters of Representative Brandon Gill argue the dramatic increase in Medicaid spending and whistleblower testimony demand stronger investigations. Governor Tim Walz maintains his administration has taken fraud seriously and insists strong protections for whistleblowers already exist. What do you think? Did Representative Gill expose serious failures in Minnesota's oversight, or did Governor Walz adequately defend his administration? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.